Right, Assalamu alaikum. Just gonna set this up. Alright, you're now live. That's what I'm talking about. Just fix this gadget. Look at that. The number of people. Alright. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. People. Hi, Dini. Abu Taymiyyah. Alaykum assalam. Alaykum assalam, Jawad Quraishi. Can you all hear me okay? Joint enterprise. You missed my question last week. The definition of zina, right? Okay, I'll come to that. Let me just first of all check. Can you guys hear me? Okay, can you hear me? Yep, I get a yes there from Jawad Quraishi. Hope you recovered. Naheem, alright. We did. It was a crazy evening. People, I have to tell you, yesterday was an awesome day. Traveled to Sheffield and met some amazing people there, chilled out really. Then traveled to Dewsbury, got to chill with some of the people there. Then Oldham, then driving back, just with the lads as it is, chilling. Amazing time. Right, can you hear me? You can't hear me. Let me just, I don't want to, right, I don't know if the volume, right, people, how is the volume actually on this? Is it okay? Shukran, Alam, shukran. Can you let me know if you can hear me okay? If not, I'll have to fidget with some of the... No visit to Bradford. Alright, well, inshallah, you can hear me very well. Excellent. The reason I'm asking, I'm not sure sometimes, is I have this connected a lot of the time. I can't tell whether it's getting diverted or it's doing what, but it's all good. Alhamdulillah. People, ahlan wa sahlan. Let's begin. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد سلام الله عليكم. Right, is that going to be bothering you guys? Let me see if I can turn the sound off, clear this. Look at that. So let's take all the way in Singapore. You can hear me, Jason. Doing it. Last week you said Hazrat Umar wished there were three things he wished the Holy Prophet clear. One was riba. What were the other two? Ya salam. I know one was to do with inheritance, an issue on a particular ruling of inheritance. I believe to do with the kalala, but and I'm not too sure at this moment in time what the third was, but I'll get back to you on that. Right, so let's take a look at some questions. Look at that, people coming on. Ahlan wa sahlan. Sheikh, can you talk or tell something about the Ashari Aqeedah within the Maliki madhab and the statement that Allah is above? Okay, I'll tell you what, let's take a mas'ala of Aqeedah. Let's begin with that. Aqeedah is creed, is belief. The thing is that, you see, the way you have to understand how Islam is. Like, you got to kind of take a step back, and because we're so caught inside of Islam and the Muslim community, it's difficult to sometimes grasp things externally. So you've got to kind of take a step back and understand that, look, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to the people, to the Arabs, with a message in essence that was of simplicity. I'm not saying, and you see, I'm not saying simplistic, but simplicity. Okay, so there is a distinction. Now, the thing is, when it came to beliefs, the main thing, the Prophet ﷺ, he called people towards reasoning, towards reflecting of the universe, the world, creation, just developing mature thought and recognizing that, can this statue here be my God? Now, in fact, all the major prophets were sent with a similar kind of da'wah, to call people to reflect, to become a people of aql, of intellect and reason, at least at a low level, and kind of like contemplate things and realize the absurdities of superstition and worshipping idols and stuff like this. So the thing is, now there were certain things that the Prophet ﷺ, he taught very clearly. A lot of some angry faces there, that people all accepted, Muslims, that there's one God and there's an afterlife and stuff like this. Whoa, somebody really hitting it with the angry faces there. So the thing is, people don't have a problem with that. As Islam starts to spread after the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, after the time of the Sahaba, even maybe after the time of the Tabi'een, the Atba'u Tabi'een, these are the true Salaf. When they say Salaf, they're talking about these three, right? Now, after their time, Islam, there's a huge, there already is a huge expansionist method, like kind of operation going on. Islam has brought in huge parts of the world. A lot of people are asking questions. Now they start to ask questions about, well, not just, okay, there's one God, but how is God? So you see, prior to now, people were asking, a few people may have asked, but in general, people just said, oh God, okay, and they just stopped there. But then, you see, as a religion starts to get slightly institutionalized and it becomes more about order and control and expansionism and empire and stuff like this, there's a lot of other, like, people are coming in, there's a lot of theologies developing, questions are being asked. So people start to talk about things like, well, that about what is, how is God? I know there's one God, but what is he like? What is, and they start to get into certain things. And this is where the creed of the Muslims, post that point, will never be the same again. And in all honesty, nobody today is upon what the Salaf were upon. Nobody is upon that. 100%. That's the reality of the Muslim world. It doesn't mean that people are necessarily misguided. I don't mean it by that. Right, now, it just means, you see, it's like once a thought it has kind of taken place, it can never be unlearned. Okay, you can't eradicate ideas. Those people had simplicity. And simplicity, in some ways, as has been defined by Da Vinci, is the highest form of sophistication. But they had that. We don't have that. Okay, not for almost a 1,000 years. We haven't had that, really. People have asked too many questions about God, and once, it doesn't matter who, even those people who said we will not discuss it ended up discussing it. So what happened was, you started to get different schools, and the main schools that emerged were originally from within, if you want to say within Ahl Sunnah, whatever we want to call Ahl Sunnah being the main body of Muslims, orthodoxy, or the main, you had the Ashari, known as, named after Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari. You had, I suppose, what comes after him, a kind of splinter off from that, which right now, just for brevity, for the sake of brevity, we're going to consider as one, is the Maturidi, which is still part of the Ash'ari kind of way of thinking. And then you had like the Hanabila, who today are termed the Salafis. So there was a huge difference of opinion between these people when it came to how we speak about God. A group of these, and it really kind of centered around questions like, does God have body parts? Now, the Hanabila and the Salafis today, they took the position that God has body parts. Okay, now, so they said that we believe God does have body parts. And this group said that they, in essence, didn't accept that. That they didn't feel it was okay to say God had body parts. Then amongst themselves, this group disagreed. So there were some that went to a great extreme in saying God is just like a human being in the sky somewhere. That was an extreme minority of people, some of the Hanabila. And so they took the hadith that Inna Allah khalaqa Adam fi suratihi, that God created Adam just like him, therefore he is a man up there in the sky. But that was a minority of Muslims. The majority of this camp, the Hanabila and today's Salafiyah, for example, they say God has body parts, but then they will just say, but we don't know what his body parts look like. So they will say God has hands, but they're not necessarily like our hands. So we don't know what his hands are like. I mean, I personally don't accept that kind of, I find that very kind of medieval, and it doesn't really fit in this day and age. And I don't really, it didn't fit in the time of the Salaf anyway, but I definitely don't believe it makes sense in this day and age. But I know that people, this is generally what they believe. And sometimes they don't like using the word body parts, but they'll just name the parts individually. So they won't say, we like to say God has body parts. Some of them will just say it. They'll say, yeah, we believe God has body parts. Some of them won't say it like that. They'll say, no, we won't say that. We'll just say, we believe God has hands, face, fingers, one foot, a shin, a back, a face, which are body parts. I mean, all those things are only body parts. They're not like, so it doesn't really, it's a bit of a redundant kind of argument. But the point is, so then you had the Ash'ari, who amongst themselves as well, they said that these verses were metaphorical, and they were metaphors that God was trying to give. He was trying to speak about something else, and he used these body parts as part of the greater metaphor in language. So this then becomes a debate, which is really unresolved and can never be resolved. So it continues till today, really quite strong. So they will say, so this camp will say, oh, God used the word of body parts, so therefore we believe he has body parts. And these people will say, yes, but body parts are used in language within metaphor. So there's this kind of clash and this textualism. To be honest with you, neither of these groups 100% embody what the Salaf were upon. They can't, because the Salaf never spoke about what they believed. So even the Salafis today who will say, oh, we just believe what the Salaf believed, really that's just a play on words, and it's just something which sounds nice. It's like, when people say Islam has all the solutions. I mean, until you actually say, okay, well, where are the solutions? The thing is, in the same way, so when the Salafiyah say, we just believe what the Salaf believe, that's actually just a play on words. They don't believe what the Salaf, because the Salaf never discussed this. They never used to say, so they, you can't, that's just a forged kind of statement. None of the groups, not the Ash'aris nor the Hanbalis, the Salafis today, are 100% upon what the Salaf of this Ummah were upon. But both are attempts to reach and understand Allah. To some, this kind of language makes sense. To others, that kind of language makes sense. So that's the difference. I do believe these issues are irresolvable. I do believe that both schools have flaws, in my understanding. Some maybe less than others. So if obviously to me the Ash'ari thing makes much more sense than the Salafi kind of way of thinking, because to me that's just highly inconsistent, attributing body parts and stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that the Ash'ari thing won't have problems. It will, and it does for our day and age. Maybe in its own day and age, when it first set up, it didn't have as many problems. But today, there will be some elements that will be highly problematized. But in all essence, like ethics, for example, will be massively problematic from this perspective of the divine commandment theory, that there is no good or bad except what God commands, is massively problematized in our day and age, because people do recognize a sense of ethics, a sense of a moral compass or something. Anyway, God damn, what a somber question to begin with. Wow. That's just totally killed the mood, didn't it? It's like, God, I swear, this is why I hate dealing with Aqeedah. It just kills the mood, doesn't it? Right, so, likes when he talks. Does this guy get blinded by the likes when he talks? Lol. Right, I don't know. I wish I did. Salamu alaikum. I wanted to know how important the imposition of hijab by the state, something that have a basis on the Sunnah in case and lets the Ottoman Empire and non-Muslims. The British accent. It is the British accent, Amira. That's I can definitely answer that very quickly. It definitely is that. And just shout out to my ex by Little Mix. Laban saying a shout out to Little Mix. Little Mix. Right, anyway, the thing is, the hijab is not from... It's not something that was impositioned like that by the state. It depends. You see, when we say state... I shared a lecture this last week by a sheikh. I believe he's a sheikh. Allahu Akbar. Some people objected to me referring to him as sheikh. I really just think that's out of hate, really. But Sheikh Jonathan Brown, Dr. Jonathan Brown. Now, I shared a lecture of his, the myth of the universality of the caliphate. Amazing lecture, seriously. Wallahi, it really just so hit home with me. The thing is that, but I mean, so the reason I mentioned that is it's worth listening to if you haven't listened to it already. But the point is, you see, we as Muslims, when we kind of look back in history, we have this assumption that when people say, oh, the state, we have this assumption that this kind of romanticized view of how things work. Even if that romanticized view is, I don't know, we picture drama and we picture violence and we picture stuff, but we still have a very romantic view of state. In reality, it was nothing like that. Different parts of the world all just ran their own kind of operations, and they didn't really, it was never this big deal that people think today it may have been. It was a bit like, it was just politics and Muslim, it was just about rulership. Like, might is right, and whoever got in control, and he was just like you'd imagine a ruler to be, like he's more, worried about how to keep his little whatever domain together, who to fight off, how to expand, how to collect taxes, there was never this kind of, people think it's some kind of, oh, this is Islamic, oh, everybody was so, I know, let's all pray together. Maybe, blessed are the naive. The thing is that, in all reality, it was just life. That's what it was. But my point is, so when people say, did the state impose certain things, we can reflect throughout history on certain states that existed. Let's say the Murabitin, who ruled a large amount of empire, really, Europe, parts of Europe, and parts of North and Central, close to Central Africa. Now the thing is, during their state, I mean, Yusuf ibn Tashfin is one of the legends that kind of is one of the initial early leaders. But during his grandson's reign, it was known that the princess, for example, one of the things that the Muwahhideen, the Mohad dynasty, when it tried to, the insurgency, as it tried to rise against the Murabitin, Muhammad ibn Tumart, when he went and would often kind of speak against, like, isn't it Ali ibn Yusuf ibn Tashfin, and condemn him and so on. One of the criticisms was that his daughter, the princess, would go through the marketplace and stuff, and she wouldn't cover her hair. And she wasn't covered she was covered had clothes on, but her hair used to be open and stuff like this. Now, I'm just giving you an example of a report. There were other transmissions we have within certain texts. I believe Ibn Hazm, he transmits about certain, when he speaks. You see, we only get this window into this when some people accidentally mention it. So I believe Ibn Hazm in one of his, I think it's in Tawq al-Hamama, where he's speaking about certain people, and he says, but it might not be Tawq al-Hamama, but I'll get the reference, but where he then says, oh, and these people, I saw this girl and so on, and he says, and ala adatihim, and in accordance with their custom, they wouldn't cover their hair. So you see, when you see, it's only now him mentioning that as a side note that it kind of makes you think, oh, okay. Whereas had he not mentioned that, you wouldn't have access to that window to look into the history there. So anyway, my point being that the state did not impose hijab on women like that. In all honesty, I don't think it really, I mean, I know people would really, some people might flip. But who cares? In all honesty, I don't think they really cared at all about these kind of things. I can imagine public indecency would have caused a problem. So let's say a woman went and stripped down naked in the middle of the street. Something like that wouldn't have happened. Not in general, not if she was sane. And that would have warranted some kind of state, like the local, the shurta of the time, the police, and action as public obscenity, and people would have caused, as you can imagine, the mob would have just gone mad. But as far as certain things like, oh, did they cover the hair? Did they cover this? Did they cover that? I think in some places they did, because it was custom. Just as it was in the rest of the medieval world. And in other places they didn't. I don't think it was, I don't think it's so much the way we think. We kind of get Islam as this, it was just a lived way, it was like a way of life for these people. A bit like saying, you go to Pakistan today, certain rural parts. And that's how people just live. Okay, now, right. But breaking aura in public wouldn't be considered public indecency like in Iran today. You see, I don't think the aura like that, as in like the woman showing her hair and stuff like this, I don't think that. I think many women historically would have shown their hair and stuff like that. A good example is like that princess that's been reported. I mean, she's the Murabitin. You have to remember, that's like 500 Hijri. So we're talking like almost 800 years ago. Okay, during a dynasty that was built on this whole thing of Islam. The Murabitin were all about the ribats. They were all about teaching Islam and doing stuff like that. Right, what arguments can you use against those who reject hadith? Right, the thing is, hadith, to reject hadith, you see, it's interesting because hadith is the corpus, the collection of, it contains within it, to a large degree, the sunnah. But the school of Medina, Imam Malik's school and Imam Abu Hanifa, do not see the hadith as synonymous with sunnah. So although a huge amount of the sunnah is contained within the body of hadith, and according to some Malikis, some sunnah is not in the hadith, but the thing is, and it was a lived practice, but the point is they are not synonymous. So at times certain hadith are problematized and they're not an authority in themselves necessarily. But to reject the entirety of hadith would be to dismantle the sunnah altogether. And you're a gremlin. Okay. Alright, I've got no idea what's going on here, what kind of conversation. Right, so do you believe debates between Muslims are beneficial, such as between Sunni and Shia, especially for the majority of the Ummah who are not scholars? How to understand the hadith? Damn, wait there. لولا حواء لما خانت أنثى زوجها. Is that a Sahih hadith? In Sahih Muslim? If that, yeah, Amira, about Sunnah and Hadith, I have done on YouTube. You can watch a talk I did a few years ago actually, about the difference between Hadith and Sunnah. There is a distinction. So that's a good example, you see, like the Lola Hawa Lama Khanat Untha Zawjaha. You see, that to me sounds just like something that has crept in from biblical sources. And that would not be an authority. That would not be an authority, because just by definition it is against the understanding that we have of Islam. Because our actions are not carried on or carried upon by the actions of Hawa. You don't commit sin today or crimes today because Hawa or it doesn't work like that. You have your own mind. You are لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها ولا تزر وازرة. See a clear verse of the Quran. That contradicts a clear verse of the Quran that وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى, that one soul will never carry the burden of another. So these kind of ahadith would clearly show that this hadith is problematic, even if it is in Sahih Muslim. And in Sahih Muslim there are, Mazari said that he felt there were 14 or 13 hadith which would have been weak or fabricated but were in Sahih Muslim. Other people may have problematized others, but my point is, it's not, this is, the school, you just have to go to the Muwatta, which is the oldest book of hadith we have today, and it's of, Imam Malik's book. And the hadith in there are sahih. And after several hadith, he will bring hadith and say, وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ الْعَمَلِ, and we don't act according to that hadith. Like, in other words, okay, but we don't act according to it. And the point is, this understanding, this view of saying we draw this distinction between hadith and sunnah, we follow the sunnah, which is in many times is within the hadith, but at sometimes it is not, or even if it is in different hadith, but it's not. So hadith in itself would have to kind of tie in with the overall message of Islam. If a hadith came like this, that Hawa seems to be the source of evil, it contradicts the overarching message of Islam, and therefore it would be rejected. Okay. Is it permissible to work in a cafe or theatre where I have to wash the dishes they ate from the haram? The haram! These kufs! The kufr dishes, man. The kufr. So the thing, of course it's okay. Of course it's okay, Osama. Oh my God. And the question from somebody called Osama. It's okay. It's okay. It's all good. It's all good. Naveed, let's get some questions. Can you discuss IVF? IVF, right. Okay, well, you know, they told you how children come into this world. Let's backtrack. You don't understand. All right, well, funny you should say that. I mean, let me take out a magazine to help you. No, the thing is, right, well, IVF, what is it, in vitro fertilization or whatever. But the thing is, it's artificial insemination. So when, I think the person would have meant what is the Islamic ruling as opposed to explaining what it is. I'm sure most people know what IVF is. I feel that Islamically there is no problem with IVF and stuff like this. If a couple are having issues conceiving, if they can do that through medical assistance, then alhamdulillah. And if somebody says that they can't conceive because it's qadarullah, apart from me saying that, I would just say to them that, are you retarded or something? But what I would say to them, okay, but besides that response, I would say to, if they said that they can't conceive and that's qadarullah, therefore they shouldn't do IVF, you would say, well, the IVF, if they did it, is also qadarullah. You understand? That if Allah has enabled, it is from the destiny and the decree of Allah that they can go and try this. It's like when Sayyidina Umar was in a particular town and a ta'un, a plague broke out. And he left it, and the hadith says, because there's a hadith which, and this is interesting, you see, because there's a hadith which says if you're in a town and a plague breaks out, you're not allowed to leave. And the interesting thing is, you see, now there's just a common sense to that, but some people saw that as like a religiosity to it, like there's a religious, like it's an act of worship that you can't leave. To other people, it was the fact that, well, because you might be infected and you might cause a pandemic. So the thing is, Sayyidina Umar, he left. And somebody said to him, أَتَفِرُّ مِنْ قَدَرِ اللَّهِ, that, Ya Umar, أَتَفِرُّ مِنْ قَدَرِ اللَّهِ, that, Ya Umar, do you run from the destiny of Allah? He said, نَفِرُّ مِنْ قَدَرِ اللَّهِ إِلَىٰ قَدَرِ اللَّهِ. Allah. Dons. Look at that. He said we run from the decree of Allah to the decree of Allah. Meaning that, you know, that the fact that we could run, this was from the decree of Allah. So don't worry about it. Yes, so if you IVF, it is permissible. Lebanon, what country are you from? Abu Taymi is just having his own conversations on here, isn't he? He's just like, just come on here for a little chit chat. But I mean, I'll let him off because he shares some funny stuff sometimes on Facebook. Unless that's a different Abu Taymi, and I'm not sure, I'm mixing them up. But what do you say about copyright in Islam? Being considered piracy in Islam? I'd say that we think we should follow the laws. You see, in my understanding, piracy laws from an Islamic legal theory perspective didn't really make too much sense. So they didn't exist, copyright laws and stuff like that within Islam in our classic tradition. So let's say I wrote a book, now you came, you took my book, you could go make copies of it and sell it. And you would, whatever money you make is yours. Now, people would say, well, you know, that's not fair. Since I wrote the book, I ought to get the money from it. Somebody could argue, well, since that person got off his lazy behind and actually did some work by copying it, he just capitalized on initiative. And that's the way of the world. You see, the thing is, I can see the argument from the fact that you could be somebody like wealthy corporations could come and exploit you because you haven't got the resources that they have. And for that perspective, for it to become criminalized and stuff the way it has in our modern times, I can see that angle. Although I don't necessarily believe that it's a religious thing. I believe it's the only angle, it's more a ruling that's kind of been set into motion to safeguard from exploitation. I don't believe that it's, from an Islamic perspective, there would be no harm in doing that, from how Islam teaches. So you wrote a book and I came and just copied your book and wrote it out, took photocopies of it and went, or traditionally people would just write it out, they would take it to a bunch of scribes and make them copy it out, and they would spread the book, and traditionally people loved that stuff. They loved it because it kind of spread their word, their message. It was like, wow, like I wrote this book and look how many people shared it. It's a bit like imagine you start getting Facebook shares. So here I am, hint, hint, right? So several people start sharing my, so I start thinking, whoa, look, all these guys are sharing my, right, sorry, I think I just lost connection there. What the hell has happened to the connection? Damn, why is the connection so weak? I mean, I've got broadband, it's upgraded, bloody hell, I'll have to have it checked out. But anyway, I hope you can hear me fine. So the thing is that, look, people traditionally took a kind of a pride in that their work was being shared. Today, it is, I suppose if there's exploitation, I can understand. But there is this sense of kind of capitalistic greed as well. That, you know, if it's mine, what's in it for me? That's the... Right, next question. Right. What? Saying salam when we say with a kum, even though we're addressing one person. Okay, Hussein, good question.